The first provincial capital to fall to the armed group since the U.S.-led intervention. That was in 2001. Mushtaq Rahim is an independent security analyst. He's joining us from Kabul. So if this troop deployment does go ahead at the request of NATO commanders on the ground, as well as the Afghan government, do you think that these troops will be able to make a difference to the security situation right now on the ground?
Looking at the current situation in Afghanistan, we know we had over 100,000 of U.S. troops present in Afghanistan doing the same, fighting Taliban. And we see after so many years of their confrontations, Taliban still pose a threat to Afghanistan. So looking at it from the physical security perspective, I don't see much of the change happening, because something that could not have been done with the help of such a larger contingent of forces here in Afghanistan, how can you expect such a small group, which is being discussed right now, to be around 3,000 to 5,000
troops? But what choice does NATO have? What choice does NATO have? If NATO does not send in more troops, then the Taliban will most likely make more gains, and they're on the verge of taking over Kunduz.
Well, in terms of sending more troops, I think there is no question about it. More troops should come in to support the Afghan forces in terms of training, advisory services, etc. But the option or the possible choice that the NATO and international community has in Afghanistan is to address the root causes of the conflict. That is basically the availability of safe havens beyond the borders of Afghanistan, from where the Taliban are being bred and from where the Taliban have been provided political and financial support, material support. I think the overall strategy should concentrate on beating Taliban at the root levels instead of addressing the symptoms of the whole conflict, that is the Taliban coming in and taking the government.
But how difficult is that going to be when the Taliban doesn't feel like it needs to make any consensus, seeing that it's made major gains on the ground?
You see, the major gains are basically happening because wherever they feel pressure, they can retreat back to their safe havens, and whenever they have a bit of relief, they come back. If you close down the borders and dismantle the safe havens beyond the borders of Afghanistan, there is definitely a possibility that they will start feeling pressure. We can see that since 2014, the Afghan forces have taken over the combat mission, and they have been holding up the Taliban groups, and in certain areas, they have been able to push them back even. They have gained, the Taliban have gained back the space mainly because they had an opportunity to go back, retreat back, get prepared for another offensive. So my basic push is that the troops approval and coming to Afghanistan is not a bad choice, because this also conveys a particular message to the neighbors of Afghanistan and the Taliban that the U.S. continues to maintain an interest in Afghanistan. There was a worry in Afghanistan, and the neighbors were looking at it closely, because Mr. Donald Trump and the U.S. administration during the election campaign did not really reveal their policy for Afghanistan, and even during later months they have been so much busy in their internal administration affairs that the worry was, and then the opposition parties were expecting that the Americans might be losing interest in Afghanistan.
Okay.
The approval of new troops and arrival of new troops at least sends a positive message to the government of Afghanistan, telling them that America remains interested in Afghanistan.
Should the arrival happen,
the American withdrawal, and were looking to topple down the government.
Should the arrival happen, for the time being, we'll leave it for now. Mushtaq Rahim, we thank you for speaking to us. The Palestinian